Still has not struck Shedeur. The Colorado product on the board with 102 picks having come and gone. Adding insult to uncertainty, 3 more QBs selected on day 2, bringing the total to 5. On to day 3, Sanders still available. For more, we check in with CBS lead NFL insider Jonathan Jones. JJ, we did not expect to be here, but here we are. Tell me what you're hearing from around the league, how we got here.
This, Joe, is a repudiation by the NFL of how Shedeur Sanders and those around him handled the entire NFL draft process. What you are not going to tell me, or really anyone who watches football, is that Shedeur Sanders is a worse quarterback than Dillon Gabriel, who was selected in the 3rd round of the NFL draft. Look, I didn't think that Shedeur Sanders was going to go in the 1st round of the NFL draft. I thought, and in talking with teams, they told me that he was a 2nd round quarterback. 2nd round comes around. I start calling around today. At the start of the draft, I learned he's probably not going to go in the top 10 of the 2nd round. Okay, that's fine. At some point in there, in talking with NFL evaluators, they believed that at some point in the 2nd round, he would eventually be selected in the 2nd round. Then the 3rd round comes. And as we know, of course, he's not selected at all on Friday night. And so when you look at this, you say that Shedeur Sanders, you see that Shedeur Sanders was clearly talented enough to be selected in the top 5 when it comes to quarterbacks, right? He was a top 5 quarterback in this year's class. Not a great class, not a class that had many 1st rounders, but he was one of the 5 best quarterbacks in this NFL draft. You're not going to convince me otherwise of that. But the difference here is how he and those around him handled the draft process. Let's go back even a year ago when his father, Deion Sanders, one of the greatest athletes of modern times, was saying, look, we might pull an Eli. Which, of course, he was referring to how Eli Manning ultimately didn't go to the San Diego Chargers and then engineered, along with his father, a way to go to the New York Giants 2 decades ago. And then his tune changed over the next year, right? But then what continued to happen? He would tweet after every Las Vegas Raiders loss, thank you, God. And it seemed like the Raiders were destined for the #1 overall selection. It seemed like he was trying to engineer his way to the #1 pick on a team that was co-owned by Tom Brady. And then the New York Giants, maybe they get the #1 pick, or they're going to be up top. And so he has the New York Giants colored cleats. And then we get to the combine, and no, he does not throw, which is not uncommon for top quarterbacks these days. But in some of those meetings, and we reported this at the NFL Scouting Combine in Indianapolis, at some of those meetings with certain teams that maybe Shedeur Sanders didn't really want to go to, didn't see himself going to for any number of reasons. Maybe they had a starting quarterback installed there. I was told that he more or less sandbagged in those interviews. I don't know if he didn't take them seriously, what it was, but he did not give it his all in some of those interviews. Rubbed some teams the wrong way. And so then you continue where it was a pro day that, frankly, was just sort of average. I'm not saying it was bad. It wasn't great. It was average. And so more and more continues. He gets his number, his jersey number retired. His father retires his jersey number at Colorado. That is something that's really just not seen in major college football, how quickly it was done, and considering the lack of accolades in his career. All of these things began to add up for teams. And I'm not saying that that is right, that it added up for teams. What I'm saying is it did clearly add up for teams, because you're not going to tell me that the guy who was on the field the last 2 years for Colorado wasn't good enough to be selected by the end of the second night, wasn't good enough to be selected over a Dillon Gabriel, with all due respect to Dillon Gabriel. So this is clearly a way for the NFL and its teams to let him and anyone else after him know you can't comport yourself in this way moving forward.
Wow. Shedeur Sanders has not been drafted in the 1st round, the 2nd round, and now maybe even the 3rd round. I want to talk about it. I want to get into it. And before we do that, I want to encourage you to subscribe to the channel and smash that like button. Shedeur Sanders is arguably the best quarterback in the nation right now, coming out of college. And some people have him at number 2 in the nation, which either way is debatable. It could be either or, but somehow he's found himself in a draft category where basically nobody in the league seems to want him. And personally, I believe it's a case of you need us more than we need you. One thing that has always made me cringe with Shedeur is the showboating. I never felt it was a good thing for the game. I never felt it was a good thing for his team. And I didn't think it was a good thing for a young man to be carrying on that way. So it always made me cringe, and it kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And it seemed to get worse as he got closer to, his goal of graduating college and going to the NFL. And one of the things that I thought when I saw him all dressed up for draft day was, these big, huge, enormous chain medallions and all of that. And I mean, of course, these guys are getting NIL deals and they're making a lot of money so they can afford this stuff. But just because you can afford it doesn't mean you need to buy it. And sometimes it says more about your person when you carry on like this than it does about your purpose or your potential. And I think young Shedeur Sanders, I almost called him young Deion, I think he has gotten lost in himself and has become overly confident. And now he's tried to make himself stand out when he didn't need to. You're already a Sanders. You're already Deion Sanders' son. So all you got to do is go out there and be great. And if you pair that up with being humble, now people pull you in and pull you to the top because they know you could be arrogant because you're Deion Sanders' son. But the fact that you choose not to be would make people connect with you more and would make people pull you to them. Whereas when you try and go be more arrogant than Deion would appear to be, and you're not quite Deion, yeah, you're a darn good quarterback, but you might not become the best quarterback of all time. Deion was dang near the best defensive back of all time. Okay, and he wasn't as arrogant as Shedeur. Even though he was boastful, it was a persona. It was a brand that he was marketing. And nobody had done it at that point. And even then, he rubbed some people the wrong way, but he was so talented that people would rather have him and deal with his flashiness and let that work towards their success than not have him. Shedeur, on the other hand, what the league has shown in this stance that they're taking is there are other quarterbacks that we can get and we don't have to have you. Shedeur is not necessary. Deion Sanders was necessary. The cornerback position would not have evolved as much as it did or has done to this day without Deion Sanders. The quarterback position will not be furthered by Shedeur Sanders. If Shedeur Sanders never plays a down in the NFL, it'll kind of be like Charlie Ward not playing in the NFL. We missed a great opportunity to see a great legacy, but we didn't. We didn't lose the game in the process. Y'all let me know what you think. Comment below, and if you haven't subscribed already, let's get this thing up to 100 subs. I'm praying for Shedeur. Hopefully he'll get drafted. Heck, he may be a walk-on at this point. But if he does get in there, I think he's going to show people how great he is. But sometimes pays to be humble. Peace.